Hi everyone, it's Sharon, and today we're going to be talking about bug out bags. This is going to be discussion number 12 on our website, and this is just a basic look at bug out bags and why you might need them, and also some suggestions on items that we feel should really be used in them. So why would you need a bug out bag anyway? Well, as you already know, bugging out is simply leaving an area, it may be where you live or where you happen to be at the time, to escape from a pending or present threatening situation. Many people also call this evacuating. So why would you need to even bug out or evacuate? Well, it kind of depends on what's going on, really. There are natural disasters, man-made disasters, a whole plethora of different events that could lead you to need to bug out. Some of these, as far as the natural ones, include hurricanes, tropical storms, wildfires, tornadoes, flooding, blizzards, ice storms, and there's many, many more. There's also man-made disasters, which are probably, there's probably a greater amount of those actually. Terrorist attacks, civil unrest due to whatever situation's going on. There's really tons and tons. So one important thing to remember is that evacuations can be called upon by officials, and they can be mandatory. These can either be small-scale evacuations or large-scale. So if it happened, do you already have your bag in place, and would you be ready? Remember that having a good bug-out bag can save your life. If you go on Google and just type in bug-out bags, you're going to get a plethora of different options available to you. There are bags that are pre-assembled and ready to go. There are illustrations or photos of other people's bags and items they choose to store in their bags. There are articles everywhere about what type of bag people think you should carry. And while many of those are helpful, especially the photos showing, different items that people use, the bag is going to be up to you yourself. Whatever you feel is a good fit for you and is economical for you as well. We believe a good bug out bag is one that's made of durable, waterproof material. It provides a good amount of storage, but more importantly than anything, it's comfortable to wear. Especially if you have to wear this bag long term, you want to make sure that it fits properly and that you're going to be comfortable in moving and walking with it. An important point to make is that the overall weight of a stock bag, it's going to get heavier every time you take a step. So make sure you use caution when you decide what's going to go in your bag. If you can, try to use as many good quality multi-purpose items as you can, because it's going to help to free up space and lighten your load, which is very important. So you're going to need to start with the basic 5 categories. The first one being fire. You're going to need a way to start fire. We've talked about this in other discussions, but just a few different options for you is a magnesium fire starter, a flint striker, fire lighting squares, or storm-proof matches. And all those are well and good, but also we highly recommend that you learn to make your own fire without using tools, just like the friction fire method. And there's many different methods. I provided a link that actually shows you how to start a fire without matches. You can actually start a fire with water if you happen to have water and some saran wrap as well, which is really cool, and eventually we'll show you how to do that on the page too. You're going to need some shelter of some sort as well. So if you happen to have a tarp and some paracord, you can build a quick, ready to go shelter, just in case you're evacuating and we don't know the situation that's going to occur. But depending on it, you may need to, hike for a while or leave on foot for a while and set up camp and stay overnight somewhere. So this is where, especially depending on the weather conditions, you're definitely going to need a shelter. Remember the rule of 3. You can only survive 3 hours, depending on weather conditions, without shelter. So shelter is highly important. You can make one with a tarp, as we mentioned, or you can learn to use and build an earth shelter. There's also dugout shelters, and we'll be looking at those next week in the podcast. I did provide a few different links to show you how to build different types of shelters. So if you're interested or have a moment, if you want to go on those links, there's some really cool examples and how-tos on shelter building. You're also going to need a way to purify water and make sure you have food with you. When purifying water, there's different ways that you can go about doing this. You can carry water purification tablets, a light straw, water microfilter, water treatment drops. There are tons of different ways. Personally, I prefer the life straws. There's also life straw bottles, which are really cool because you can actually take the water with you on the go, so that's a great option. They're about $10 more than a regular life straw, but that's also an option that you have. And food, you're going to need some type of long-term food. So if you can make your own MREs or even purchase them, that's fine. Pack some freeze-dried or dehydrated meals, granola bars, maybe some trail mix or jerky, something. You're going to need something to have in there to sustain you. And on our site, we just showed you how to make some homemade family size MRE type meals. So if you're interested in looking at that, it's on there as well. I also provided different links to show you from other people, from other bloggers, how to go about doing that as well. There's one from Ready Nutrition, one from the Apartment Prepper, and another from the Ready Store. You're going to need some first aid tools, and make sure that you have, we suggest that you have some previous basic first aid skills and CPR skills. There's different types of first aid kits that you can buy, or you can just assemble and make your own as well. But no matter what, just make sure you have some type of first aid kit in your bag, and you're going to need a little something more than Neosporin and Band-Aids. Somebody could have an ankle sprain, God forbid, get by a snake, whatever. There are some, and then who knows what situation is going to occur, but there are some different tools and products that you can use for any of those scenarios. So just make sure you have a good first aid kit. You're also going to need some type of signaling device. I know a lot of preppers are really worried about OPSEC and being secure and everything being covert and quiet, keep it all hush hush. But depending on the situation, especially if you're by yourself, if you fall down a ravine and break your leg, you're going to need to signal for help. So, just take along a signaling mirror, or you can actually just get a signaling kit ready to go. They're actually, they're pretty cheap, and they have a few different little tools in there. There's also an emergency strobe light that can help alert others to your location to help you out. For security, I would highly suggest at least having a knife. You can use that to protect yourself from other people, from wild animals. You can use it to build your shelter, to make your fire. You can even use it to create your snare or dress out animals if for whatever reason you're stuck in the woods and you have to survive off your environment. On the website, there is also other item ideas that you need for a bug out bag. And I'll go ahead and read these. I hope it doesn't bore you. But the first one is personal identification, but make sure you put it in a waterproof bag or container. Clothing, remember, and this is a really good tip too. Remember to always pack and rotate according to the season. So like summer's coming on now, all of my winter clothing, or my one change of winter clothing that's in my bug out bag, I need to grab that out, put something a little more lightweight, maybe a set of frog togs in there, because obviously you're going to need something to keep you hot or cold based on the weather. Something also good to have, at least next to your bug out bag, is a good pair of hiking boots and definitely a good pair of socks. You're going to need a watch, a compass, and a map, all in waterproof containers if you can, a rain suit, frog tog suit, something to keep you dry in case of rain, obviously, a flashlight and a headlamp. And I would suggest at least having at least both of those. If one goes out, you have a spare. Also, make sure you throw in a few extra spare batteries, a knife sharpener, a sewing and fishing kit. And I know this sounds like a lot, but you can actually make a lot of these sewing kits. Just put them in a little container. A fishing kit, that can be small. You don't need a big old tackle box, obviously. A whistle, a magnifying glass. If you have nothing else, or your bag gets wet, or whatever the case is, if you have nothing else, you have a magnifying glass, and that's going to allow you to start a fire. So that's just a tip for you. I'm sure you all know from, being a kid. If you have room, we suggest a metal mess kit that way, or at least some type of cup or container that's metal that you can build a fire and put water in and boil the water. That's going to help purify water if you need to purify it that way. You can also heat water for cleaning or hygiene or whatever you need. Make sure you have paracord, and make sure it's good paracord. We put 550 paracord on there. If you can get even better than that, that's great. Just make sure that you have enough. That way you have it for your shelter building, and you also have it for snares and traps and just whatever else you need it for. You can pack a little hygiene kit. Even if it's those trial size versions of different supplies, that's fine. It doesn't have to be anything. You don't need your whole bathroom sink or bathroom cabinet in there. It's fine. A thermal blanket. Make sure you have a thermal blanket. A couple of them I would suggest. If your bug out bag on the bottom of it has the place for the bedroll to attach, that would be awesome. And you can also get a sleeping bag that they come now that they're really small and compressed, but they're still good at minus 20 or something like that. And those would be really good too. Good multi-purpose tools are important. A camping shovel if you have room. Make sure you pack your bag the best that you can and try to get everything to fit in there properly. You don't want to go overboard. You don't need the whole survival store in your bag, especially if you have a lot of good multi-purpose tools. But these are just suggestions and reminders for you if they help. A camping shovel, I do have one of those, and they're actually pretty neat. Snare wire, make sure you do have some type of snare wire, or you can use paracord if you have to. That way, depending on the situation, you can also try to capture your food. In my bag, I have a wire saw, just in case. And so those are really cheap, and they're pretty handy. Obviously, you're not going to take a tree down with them, but they're good for little limbs and things. Something very important is a manual can opener. Take a manual can opener in there. And these can be P38s or P51s. Just make sure you have a couple. I went to the Army surplus store here a couple weeks ago, and they had them for P51s for 50 cents each. So heck yeah, I stocked up on those. So everybody has a few to put in their bag, and they're cheap, but make sure you buy the good qualities. 50 cents is cheap, obviously, but they came from the Army surplus. We looked at them, they were in great condition, and they're made of good quality. Be careful what quality items that you get. You don't want to get the little janky ones, if you can help it. I do understand that Financially, you can only do what you can do, and I'm the exact same way. But if you can get a good quality product, please try to get that. Remember, something is better than nothing, obviously. But if you go to use it and it falls apart, no matter what it is, it's obviously not only a waste of your money, but it's done you no good at all. So just do the best you can. And a few other items real quick is like a hand crank radio. Depending on the situation, this just gonna, if there's still power and the grid's still up, it's gonna let you know what's kind of going on out there and keep you in tuned. A walkie-talkie if you're traveling, with a partner or with someone else. Those are good for communication. And batteries and a solar recharger, if you can. I don't know why I put this on the bottom, but I put antibacterial hand sanitizer. I think that should be a little higher up on the list. And ammo for your weapons, and not only ammo, but if you're taking a firearm, make sure you're taking something to clean that firearm with. If you're out there and you're going to have to stay or camp out a couple weeks in the trees or whatever, your surroundings like, if you're using that weapon, you got to keep it clean, got to keep it dry. You know all this, but just remember that a lot of people think of taking the ammo, but they don't really think of, a cleaning kit, obviously. So, just a heads up. And as mentioned, pre-stock bags can also, be purchased. But really don't buy them thinking this is all I need. Because once you buy them, you're going to notice they don't have everything that you're going to need. They have a lot of great items, just not every single thing. So, in our discussion, I did find a 1, 2, and 4 person kits. And you can look at those and, see if you don't already have a bag, see if those are good options for you. Or you can try to just assemble your own. But, so basically, just make sure you have a good bag with a lot of room. It's easy and lightweight and comfortable to carry. Make sure you have some items from the 5 different groups that we listed. And do the research. If I go buy a $150 bag that's pre-stocked, well, just be savvy about it. Heck yeah, that sounds great. But then also kind of, do the research, price search, see if it would actually be cheaper to make your own bag versus buying a pre-stocked. If you can afford it, good. Do whatever you can do. But for many of us who cannot, we do the research. We see who has the cheapest deal, the best price, but we don't want to ever compromise the quality of a product because in the end, it's about survival. So we hope this discussion was good and helpful. Please let us know. Please go ahead and share it and leave comments for us. We would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Our next discussion after this one is going to be discussion number 13, which is over building shelter. And we're going to show you how to make a few different types of shelter, including a tarp shelter, a dugout shelter, and an earth debris shelter. So we look forward to seeing you and talking to you later. Thanks for listening. Stay safe.